Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Justin Rising. You are tuned in to the Rockin' Rising channel, and Donald Trump just won the election, and this is my opinion. Obviously, Donald Trump just won the election a couple days ago, and the question on everybody's mind right now is how in the hell did this happen? And I want to go ahead and break this down in a couple different ways for everybody, and this is what I'm going to get into, and I'm going to kind of like wrap off a little bit of fact and a little bit of my opinion, and we're going to jump right into it, all right? So right now, one of the biggest things that everybody's pointing out, everybody wants to look at and say that's the problem right there, is the Electoral College, which can be kind of pointed out as an issue, but not necessarily the main issue in this election. So as everybody has probably seen by now, that Hillary Clinton is leading the popular vote right now by about 400,000 votes, but she lost the electoral votes. So, and the question is, how did this happen? And the real answer to that is you got to look at the states that Hillary Clinton did win. So in a state like California, which Hillary Clinton did win, you have about 55 electoral votes, but there are about 38 million people in that state. And out of the people who were actually living in that state, only about, I think, 10 to 12 million people actually showed up to vote in the election. So Hillary Clinton could have won that state by 51%, or she could have won the state by 100%. It wouldn't have mattered. She still would have gotten 55 electoral votes. And that is actually the main point in this, is that Hillary Clinton won California by 2,600,000 votes. So she won the popular vote, but mainly because she won California. So she got 62% of the vote there. And like I said, it wouldn't have mattered if she got 51% of the votes or 100% of the votes. She still only gets 55 electoral votes. So that is actually the main reason why Hillary Clinton is winning the popularity, but not winning the electoral votes, because Donald Trump won the remaining electoral votes in many different states. Outside of that, I mean, the question is, how did Donald Trump even get here? And it's tough to point like one thing out, and I would say some of the blame falls on the Republican Party, some of the blame falls on the Democratic Party, and other parts of the blame fall on every one of us as American people. And this all starts by looking at the primary election, and Donald Trump started campaigning to be president before then, but then you had 16, I believe the number was, 16 presidential nominee hopefuls in the Republican Party, which any Republican who's registered as a Republican could have voted for. And what they ended up doing was voting for Donald Trump to be one of those presidential nominees. And then you had multiple other people with dwindling support kind of dropping out left and right, other ones endorsing Donald Trump, other ones kind of walking away. It starts there. We have that primary process to find out who the American people would like to see, especially in the Republican and Democratic parties. We want to see who their front runners are, who we want to see lead that party, lead those two large groups. The next thing to that is, I mean, part of the blame falls on the Democratic Party, and a lot of it, I would say, comes down to their like execution and treatment of people like Bernie Sanders and other front runners in the Democratic Party, because realistically, at the end of the day, it should have been pretty easy for the Democratic Party to walk away with this election. I mean, it shouldn't have even been a contest, but what happened is they put someone who's wrapped up in countless scandals. You can call them conspiracies, you can call them whatever you want, but countless things that reflect negatively upon that person over years, over decades of service in political parties. And then you had Bernie Sanders, and if you look at any of the WikiLeaks and things like that, and we can't definitely say that they're real because we don't know where the source is and whether somebody made it up or not, but most of it actually points to the Democratic convention kind of pushing Bernie Sanders off the ballot, making sure he wasn't a viable candidate going into the actual presidential race. And in my opinion, that right there alone was a huge misstep in the Democratic Party's process. Is that I honestly think if Bernie Sanders were running as the Democratic nominee, he probably would have won. He wouldn't have, like, the Democratic Party wouldn't have lost so many votes to third parties like Jill Stein or Gary Johnson. He would have been able to pick up those votes and actually run away with them, put them into the Democratic Party, and make sure that those votes went to the Democrats and not to a third party and not to Donald Trump. And I bring up the votes because that's actually the next thing I wanted to talk about is the actual tally as of right now. And you can look at this in a couple different ways, which I'll break down. But the actual tally right now in votes, this election actually was won by Donald Trump by around 192,000 votes, which means that if 192,000 more people showed up and showed support for Hillary Clinton would have actually won this election. And I've said it before on the Rock and Rising channel, a couple of different videos, that it's incredibly important to vote in your elections. It's incredibly important to vote in local elections because those people are going to be your choices in the future for presidential nominees. It's incredibly important to vote in primary elections, which is the reason why we got Donald Trump, which is the reason why we got Hillary Clinton. It's very, very important to vote for people. And then coming into this presidential election, like I said, 192,000. It's 192,000 people could have actually won this election for Hillary Clinton. And that's not even talking about swing votes. If you talk about swing votes, people who voted for Donald Trump who could have or would have voted for a Democratic nominee, it's actually less than that. It's about 112,000 people. So if let's say they put Bernie Sanders forward, Trump really only won the election if 112,000 people more in specific states would have voted for the Democratic nominee, Trump would not have won. So, like I said, it comes down to a various large group of things that have really put this perfect storm of Donald Trump together. And really the last thing I wanted to talk about, or one of the last things I want to talk about, is not necessarily something that is easy to hear, but we got Donald Trump out of each and every one of our feelings of complacency or like walking away from a problem when we should actually be addressing it. And I say that because there's various things when you talk about Donald Trump, and a lot of people say that he is he's racist, he's sexist, he's xenophobic, he is name any bias term toward any group or individual, and that name's been thrown at Donald Trump. And I won't necessarily deny it, but I will say that it is down to the complacency of good people that have let that happen. And what I mean by that is if each one of us who believes that somebody shouldn't be treated differently due to their race, their religion, their country of origin, their sex or their sexual orientation, if we believe that nobody should be treated differently and a lot more of us start standing up and pointing at the people that are making this country difficult to live in, if we start letting people know that is not okay, we start pushing back and we start saying that this is the issue in this country, Donald Trump would have not been able to get away with 90% of the shit he's said. So, and I'm not gonna point the finger and act like, I'm not part of the problem, because I gotta say I am. There are multiple times in my life that I've encountered people saying some shit that I didn't agree with, but I also didn't call them on it, because I feel like most people in this country they have the feeling of, if it's not happening to me, then it's not necessarily an issue. But then we end up in a world like this. We end up in a country like this where it is now everyone's issue. The president of the United States is somebody who in the past has said very vicious and very biased things against certain people, certain people's backgrounds, ethnic cultures, sexual orientations, even people who are disabled. If it wasn't necessarily said, because you hear this a lot as well, oh, he didn't actually say that. It's implied in what he's saying, and I do say that there's a very gray area for implications, like what was implied and what somebody said. But at the same time, we shouldn't need to infer what somebody is saying. We shouldn't need to try and figure out all right, did he actually mean to be racist there, or is it actually something that the slip of the tongue? It's bullshit. So from any point forward, I gotta say that it is going to come down to this country, everybody in it. When you see something that you do not agree with, if it is something with somebody being racist or somebody being sexist in a malicious or harmful way, say something. Absolutely say something. Let people know from this goddamn point forward that it is not okay for people to get away with saying shit that the next president of the United States is actually going to have gotten away with saying. And that's really what I want to leave it at is we really need to come together. We really got to look at the things that are similar among us and stop looking at the things that are dividing us. And that's exactly what this election has shown us, is that we are very divided at this point, and we're very divided. If you like what you saw here, please click the like, subscribe button down at the bottom. If you want to hear more about it, if you want to open up a conversation, please comment down below, and please definitely share this with anybody that you feel like might be interested in it. If you don't think anybody would be interested in it, then keep it to yourself, I guess. But please share it with other people. I do really want the message to go out that despite who the leader of our country is, we absolutely need to come together, especially now more than ever, to stop what we've done over the past few years, past decades, past 100 years, to allow us to get to this point. We need to stop being complacent as a group of people and stop allowing hate and just overall biased racism. Stop allowing it. Stop allowing it. You might not be involved in it, but involve yourself in it. You are going to be helping out yourself. You're going to be helping out another person. You're going to be helping out the rest of this country. And that's all I have. So.